Now, South America economy, beginning in the 17th century, the exploitations of the continent, resources and the development of its industry were the result of a foreign investment and initiative, especially that of Spain, Great Britain and the United States. But since the World War II, the nations of the South America have sought greater economic independence. हामी के देख्छौँ त भन्दाखेरि पोर्चुगिज नेभिगेटरहरू जुन चाहिँ यो ल्यान्डमा गए जबदेखि क्राइस्टोफर कोलम्बसले नर्थ अमेरिका पत्ता लगाउनु भयो त्यसपछिको भोयेजेसहरू चाहिँ के भयो त भन्दाखेरि अगाडि बढ्यो र 17th सेन्चुरीसम्म आइपुग्दाखेरिसम्म यसको इन्डस्ट्रीहरूको डेभलपमेन्ट रिजल्टहरू फरेन इन्भेस्टमेन्टको हेर्दाखेरि स्पेसली यी मदर कन्ट्रीहरू स्पेन ग्रेट ब्रिटेन युनाइटेड स्टेट्स यिनीहरूको कोलोनिज कन्ट्रीको रूपमा यसलाई चिनिन्थ्यो दे डु नट ह्याभ देयर ओन आइडेन्टिटी जब सेकेन्ड वर्ल्ड वार भयो अनि सेकेन्ड वर्ल्ड वारले त ती मदर कन्ट्रीहरू त जुधेपछि उनीहरू त हार्नेको पनि हालत खराब जित्नेको पनि हालत खराब हैन किनभने हामीले के थाहा पाउँछौँ भने 1939 देखि 1945सम्म 6 वर्ष युद्ध लडेर त कहाँ पो पुग्यो होला हैन जित्ने पनि सिद्धियो हार्ने पनि सिद्धियो सो दिस कन्ट्री बिकम इन्डिपेन्डेन्ट अनि यो कन्ट्रीहरू अहिले तपाईँ जुन देख्नुहुन्छ चिली ब्राजिल बोलाभिया अर्जेन्टिना कोलम्बिया लाइकवाइज इक्वेडर प्यारागो पेरू उरुगे भेनेजुला दिस कन्ट्री यिनीहरू यी देशहरू चाहिँ के भयो त भन्दाखेरि त्यहाँबाट यिनीहरूको ग्रेभ छुट्यो मदर कन्ट्रीको ग्रेभ यिनीहरूबाट छुट्यो र दे बिकम इन्डिपेन्डेन्ट इन्क्रिजिङ नम्बर अफ साउथ अमेरिकन इन्डस्ट्रिज centers have developed heavy industry supplement in the light industry as which they had previously concentrated अनि ती previously ती जो इन्डस्ट्रीहरू जुन थिए तिनीहरूलाई फेरि यिनीहरूले के गरे त कन्टिन्युसन जारी गरे इकोनोमिक एक्टिभिटिजमा हेर्नुहुन्छ भने मोस्ट अफ द कन्ट्रिज अफ ल्याटिन अमेरिका रियली हेभिली अन प्राइमरीली इकोनोमिक एक्टिभिटिज सच एज एग्रिकल्चर माइनिङ फर मिनरल्स एन्ड ओइल्स फिसिङ हार्भेस्टिङ टिम्बर एन्ड लाइभ स्टक रेन्जिङ प्राइमरी एक्टिभिटिज गर्ने मानिसहरू नै पनि नेपाल जस्तै अधिकांश मानिसहरूको चाहिँ प्राइमरी एक्टिभिटिज नै इकोनोमिक एक्टिभिटिज हो यहाँको एन्ड अर्ली अब्स्टेकल्स अफ इन्डस्ट्रियल ग्रोथ इन द साउथ अमेरिका वाज स्कार्सिटी अफ अ कोल किनभने त्यो त युरोपमा पाइन्थ्यो नि कोलको इन्डस्ट्री तपाईँले फ्रान्समा हुन्थ्यो अनि कोलकै कारणले गर्दाखेरि जर्मनी र फ्रान्स बिचको चाहिँ शत्रुता भयो भन्ने कुरा हामीले सेकेन्ड वर्ल्ड वारमा पढ्छौँ द कन्टिनेन्ट हेज देयरफोर relieved in its petroleum reserves, mostly notably in Venezuela and also in Argentina, Colombia, Chile, Peru, Ecuador as a source of a fuel. अनि पेट्रोलियम प्रडक्टहरू सोर्स अफ फ्युलको रूपमा यी देशहरूमा पाइन्थ्यो साउथ अमेरिका अल्सो हेभ ग्रेजुअली डेभलप देयर नेचुरल ग्यास रिजर्भ्स हाइड्रो इलेक्ट्रिसिटी प्लान्ट्स प्रड्युस मोस्ट अफ द कन्टिनेन्ट इलेक्ट्रिसिटी iron ore that deposited in plentiful in a Guyana and a Brazilian highland and copper is found abundantly in the Andes mountain range of Chile and Peru. Other important minerals resources include tin in Bolivia, manganese and gold in Brazil and bauxite in Guyana and Suriname. यी मेटल्सहरूको लागि हामी देख्दछौँ यी फ्युलहरूका लागि चाहिँ यी कन्ट्रीहरू चाहिँ रिसोर्सफुल रह्यो Sustainable farming is a wide spread. यो commercial farmerहरू यहाँनिर बस्दैनन् they are most of them are the sustainable farmer with about 30% of the people working about 15% of the land 15% यहाँको ल्यान्ड चाहिँ अरेबल छ जहाँ चाहिँ 30% of people यसमा डिपेन्ड छन् dense forest steep slopes and unfavorable climatic conditions along with the crude agricultural methods are the factors which hampers the agricultural productions. यसरी agricultural production hamper भएको देखिन्छ. Limited amount of cultivated land is there. Commercial agriculture, especially plantation types, that is better in terms of production because the large scale of the opportunity to use modern mechanized methods. Especially मेसिनले चाहिँ यसलाई कमर्सियल एग्रिकल्चरमा लैजान्छ र अमङ द एग्रिकल्चर एक्सपोर्ट यो ब्राजिल इज नन एज द बिगेस्ट प्रोड्युसर अफ कफी इन द वर्ल्ड संसारको सर्वाधिक कफी उत्पादन गर्ने देश ब्राजिल रहन्छ बनाना that is produced, sugar cane, tobacco, grains, these are produced. Meat is also an important इम्पोर्ट एन्ड एक्सपोर्ट अर्जेन्टिनाबाट गोरुहरू गाईहरूको मासु चाहिँ युरोपको बजारमा एक्सपोर्ट गरिन्छ द क्याटल्स आर बिन रेयर देयर इन द इन्टेरियर हन्टिङ एन्ड ग्यादरिङ फरेस्ट product are the chief economic activities of the indigenous people. Fishing is also the central industry, and in the most accessible areas, forest products are removed for export. Industry ko kuro garau aba hami South America ko. In the most of the South American countries, the industrial sector has made only the limited contribution to the creations of a new source of employment. This fact which is problematic, especially in view now. In fact, this fact which is problematic, especially in the view of a rapid growth of a labor force, can be explained in a part by the adopting of a dated production techniques require high ratio of a capital labor part of the sector of a slow growth. पुरानो टेक्नोलोजी छ अनि धेरै मजदुरहरू चाहिने यसको कारणले गर्दाखेरि इन्डस्ट्रियल सेक्टरमा चाहिँ स्लथ देखिने गरिएको हामी पाउँदछौँ अधिकांश ठाउँमा. In 1990s, about 1/5 of the continent labor force was occupied in the industrial sector. 5 भागको 1 भाग चाहिँ इन्डस्ट्रियल वर्करको रूपमा चाहिँ मानिसहरू काम गर्ने हामी पाउँदथ्यौँ 1990 को कुरो गर्दाखेरि. In early 90s, industrial sector generated more than 1/3 of the gross national product for South America as a whole. One of the total about the 4/5 representation manufacturing at the rest constructions and public utilities. In the two most industrialization countries, Argentina and Brazil, the productions of the foodstuff, beverage and tobacco accounts for only about 1/7 of the total manufacturing output. अब हामी हेर्दछौँ the metallurgy and the mechanical industry represents more than 1/3 of total output, while the chemicals and the petroleum refineries contributes about 1/4, and the textile, footwear and apparel about 1/8. And during the last quarter of the 20th century, South American industry made substantial gains, especially for the output cement, steel. They are pig irons, automobiles, the household appliance. Brazil is manufacturing of the center of Sao Paulo has emerged the industrial giants of the continent, followed by the Argentina, Venezuela, Chile. Meanwhile, the textile industry ko kuro garau bhane that is been significantly role which is being found in South American countries. Now let us see the construction industry ko kuro garau hami South America ko retains the fairly traditional method. Construction techniques are labor intensive and the costs are relative high, zyada mulya bhayeko. At the building is the high rise and the mid rise office towers, hotels, commercial structures and condominiums during the late 20th and earliest 20th century has gradually altered the skylinings virtually in every large city of the continent. Despite existence of the huge house storage, residential construction has lagged significantly behind the demand. This is due largely the reduced governmental availability and provide state financed housing and to limit involvement of the speculation capitals of the residential construction. Residential construction haru chai हामी देख्दछौं भएको. Power र irrigation का लागि हामी देख्दछौं यो total annual generation electricity in South America has increased steadily since mid 1980s. 1980 देखि यहाँको power production बढ्न गएको देख्छौं हामी, mainly through the construction of a large scale hydroelectricity project. As the South America economy has advanced and there has been greater demand for energy, and in the early 21st century energy shortage in South America were common. 21औं शताब्दीको सुरुवातदेखि नै energy shortage scarcity ले फेस गर्दै आउनु पर्यो. Especially countries depend on oil and natural gas imports. Some government have to implement the policies to stimulate the use of non-conventional sources of energy, particularly solar and wind energy मा पनि यिनीहरुको ध्यान केन्द्रित गरायो. In Brazil, Ethanol derived from the sugar cane is widely used. Ethanol पनि मेसिनमा डिजल मेसिनमा युज गरियो. And there are numerous sugar cane refineries throughout the countries. There is a great disparity between the countries in the terms of energy production. However, electrical energy per capita in Venezuela is more than twice the regional average. In Argentina, Chile, Uruguay is about the average, and the Guyana and Peru is less than half of the average. Cooperative energy project and the sharing resources, including oil and gas pipelines as well as electrical grids, have been commonly seen. Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay, Venezuela have a limited ambitious electrical installation programs that have taken advantage of some of region. Evidence hydroelectricity resources from 1960 to 1980s. 1960 देखि 1980 सम्मको हाइड्रोइलेक्ट्रिसिटी हामी देख्दछौं. Major trust international leading institutions including the Inter-American Development Bank and World Bank were the investor who has supported the infrastructure improvement. The result of the 20th century, South America boasted several of the largest hydroelectricity projects in the world, including Itapu Dam, Paraguay Brazil border, Gauri Dam, in the Llanos of Venezuela. The regional natural of the many major rivers has been used by binational cooperatives on many projects, including joining efforts. Some of the hydroelectricity projects also have been designed for the irrigation use. यो चाहिँ हाइड्रोइलेक्ट्रिसिटी मा आइसकेपछि पानीलाई चाहिँ फेरि एग्रिकल्चर युजमा प्रयोग गरिन्छ. Now, but there is the many instances which construction and distributaries canals for the irrigation has had to be achieved. Less than the 1/10 of our arable land on the land under the permanent crops irrigations. Crops ko pani cultivation त्यति राम्रो देखिएन. Brazil and Argentina have the largest amount of irrigation acres area, whereas Suriname, Peru, Chile, and Guyana have a highest proportion of irrigation relations of the cultivable land. Because of a relative scarcity of farmland, those countries' large-scale irrigation a basic necessity of the agricultural sector between Argentina and Uruguay, and between the Brazil and Paraguay. Some of the hydroelectricity projects also have been designed for irrigations and which is seen in constructions and distribution canals of irrigation have been achieved. Less than 1/10 of arable land under the permanent crops is irrigated. Brazil and Argentina have a largest amount of irrigated acres, whereas Suriname, Peru, Chile, Guyana have a highest proportion of irrigation in related to cultivable land. Because of this relative scarcity of farmland to those countries, large-scale irrigation is a basic necessity. It becomes the agriculture sector. Agriculture sector ko basic irrigation facility run gayo. Now let us talk about the trade. South America, most banks and financial institutions are the large enterprises with branches in many cities and towns. In some countries, a high proportion of these were government-owned until in the year of 1980s. But in the 21st century, foreign-owned banks, joint venture enterprises, local and foreign capitalization were common. Wholesale and particularly related business enterprises, and on the other hand, are mostly individual concerns, and in the many cases are family owned and operated. Departmental stores, chain stores, likewise uncommon in most South American countries until in the year of 1970s. And it have been imported part of the mechanized environment, especially in the larger cities. During the 1980s, modern marginals and the marketing structures took hold the many countries like Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, Colombia, and Venezuela, often giving the competitive ease of the marketplace to the enterprises that adopted by them. If we see in the case of transportation, you could see all means of transportation being available there. In area with the size of South America, an efficient system of transportation is necessary for development of the hinterland. The extension of a national market and the irrigations to the different national economic system, unlike with the North America, South America still doesn't have an adequate integrated transportation network. Significant efforts have been made to improve the both connections with the countries and like linkage between them. If we see cultural life, you could reach cultural life there. The rapid extensions of the communication technology has brought the social, economic and political happenings, urban life, formerly isolated rural communities, and in the process has created a transitional South American culture. Song and dances spread rapidly through continental coverage of the popular show and through the celebration of annual pop music festivals in the different parts of Latin America. Some rhythm thrives in the particular region. Salsa is popular in the countries bordering with the Caribbean Sea. Samba is exclusively used in coastal region of Brazil. The Andes countries, ballads accompanied with the guitar are performed, while in the southern cone of a romantic song with the Spanish roots are dominant. The passions for the football, soccer is the both unifying and dividing forces of the continent. Seemingly endless competitions are followed with the favors, the most popular being qualifications matches for the world champion and every 4 year World Cup, which is we know, and the eliminations of the games of the Continental Championship, Copa Libertadores de America held every year. Boxing is also the popular spectacular sports. Bullfights is cockfights, once very popular in Peru and Colombia respectively, have lost of appeal in the last decades. Horse racing, which is associated beating there, it is still the favorite in Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, Brazil, Venezuela, Chile, strongly derived from the general Latin altitudes of the values of a televised soaps, operas. Those producers, Mexico is the most dominant, while Argentina series cater chiefly in the southern cone viewers. A typical story lines portray heroines who are ready to defend their virtues against the impulsive labor. Actually, shows are more popular than game shows. Public interest shows on television, although they are more country specific because of the national character trails. There has been some internationalization in the few of them, particularly where broadcast out of Miami. Movies made Hollywood dominates everywhere, while the some rural cinemas, Mexican countries, dramas still popular in major cities of a continent. European and American movies are shown in the different part of the continent. Thank you, friend.